Hi everyone, my name is Matthew. I'm a wine consultant and training specialist with Taste Domain. And this video is really all about what I would consider the fundamentals, the key and core of how to be an effective salesmanship with wine. And I have a whole series devoted to this. So I asked you to sort of go through everything. And once you've completed everything, you really have a good idea of how to do this job well, how to make it in this job. So with this video, I want to focus on three things. The pitch, I want to focus on two, the selling points, and I want to focus on three, the ending. Number one, the pitch. So in this job, there are a lot of different ideas of how to do an effective pitch. From inviting people over to your table saying, hey, have you ever been to Spain? Or inviting people over to your table and saying, hey, have you ever tasted 102-year-old grapes? If you're doing something, particularly an old vine Zinfandel, that really the grapes on this product, on this winery, are that old. Versus another idea with the pitch where you're supposed to end it with a period instead of a question mark. The difference between, hey, would you like to taste some great wine today? Versus, hey, I have some really delicious European wine today. If you notice, the last one ends in a period, and the first one ended in a question mark. Versus even more complicated stuff. You can actually develop a really well-crafted, complicated pitch where you're trying to illustrate all the different selling points of the particular wine that you are sampling. My attitude with the pitch is a very thematic attitude throughout my whole entire salesmanship career, which is keep it simple, stupid. I've never seen any of those complicated pitches really work for me to bring people over to my table. I've seen it equally as effective to just say, hey, I had some really delicious wine today, versus, have you ever been to Spain, which is a slightly more complicated pitch. What I would argue is that what matters more is your actual engagement with the people around you, that you're not just sort of sitting on your chair doing nothing, but you're pulling and asking people, saying, hey, we got a great wine tasting, who are out of your reach. You're pulling and asking people from the shelves who are in the wine section, saying, hey, we got a great wine tasting. I got a great Pinot, a Merlot, a Cab, or whatever. And you're pulling them over to your table. And then you're doing that in a nice and welcoming way so that people actually want to come and are not turned off by it. And you got to watch what you say and do in this process, obviously. But as long as you're engaged and active and actually bringing people over, the better you are in your pitch. So number two, the selling points. I go by the adage and the theme again in this process, keep it simple, stupid. With selling points, I've never really seen too many selling points that really encourage customers to buy beyond the simple taste and beyond giving a really accurate depiction of what exactly is the person experiencing in their mouth when they're actually tasting the wine that you're sampling. Experience is going to be the thing that wins you most of the time. And so if customers can actually vividly see, hear, understand what the experience of actually tasting that wine is, you're going to have more success selling that bottle versus if you're inaccurate in your experience, if you're not telling the story well, or even if you're not taking care of the temperature of your bottles well so that customers can experience what you experience. That's the main thing. That's if you were to learn anything about any bottles of wine when you're actually in the selling process, and if you were to do any sort of small, minimal, fundamental thing to woo people to buy your wine, focus on your tasting notes and how you're describing the taste. And finally, three, the ending. You really need to give the onus to the customer at this point. You've done all the talking. You need to be asking questions such as, would you like a bottle? Or such as, what do you think? Or such as, what was your favorite one? What was your least favorite one? Get the customer's participation. And don't do it in an aggressive way. Do it in a question-focused way. If you're asking questions, it's non-aggressive. If you're saying, here, take a bottle, or what's the next one, or something like that, it can be much more aggressive. And do modulate your voice a little bit so that you are super aggressive in this process, because I can guarantee you, if you're aggressive, customers will walk away from your table, never come back, and I'll start hearing stories about how crazy you are versus how I might be, or someone who's done this business for a very long time might be. So those are your 3 points and the 3 ways to do it. The one thing that I will say is a lot of self-evaluation that you can do to know whether or not you're successful at this or not is to look at your sales and to look at your customer activity. If you've compared your sales and customer activity and they roughly align with what your organization normally does, what your competitors normally do, sort of the average or maybe above average, then you're already doing the process fine and you don't need to sort of go over and above to change how you do it. If your sales, if your activity are below on average from what your organization or competitors do, then you do need to worry about it. And it is something to be concerned about. How well are you doing your pitch? How well you're describing the wine that you are representing? And how well are you ending it? And a lot of this too can come the more you are in the business, because the more you are in the business, the more you'll get an idea what the average sales for your product in certain stores are and how you can best capitalize on them or not. There are exceptions to this rule with the pitch, for example, as well. If you have a distinct selling feature of your product, such as it's at a ridiculously good price, that's the point you have to emphasize in your pitch. But for the most part, these rules of thumb really work well, and they should construct and frame how you think about the actual selling process itself. Thank you.